these spotlights throughout the day. But the little bat that I'm talking about is called the tricolored bat. So the fur changes colors 3 times as it goes from its skin to the outside of its body. And you can see one just sleeping up there right now. It looks like a little brown mud speck.
Oh, yeah.
There's quite a few up there. There's one more higher up.
Oh, yeah.
I think we counted like 7 or 8 up there the other day. We like to call those bats the chicken nugget bat because it's about the size of a chicken nugget. And kids never forget that.
How long have you been doing these tours?
He just said almost 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 2015 was when I started.
Okay.
And we've had years where we've had to cancel because of rain, early bat migration. We pushed the tours up a little bit for that reason. Sometimes the bats will migrate back early if the weather's a little bit warmer. Usually they don't come back until late March, but the first 2 weekends in March we've been pretty much okay. The last few years it seems to be a sweet spot. So we'll see a lot of interesting stuff on the ceiling. Right off the bat we see some really cool big stalactites. I always say the stalactite hangs on tightly to the ceiling, right? It's a good way to remember it. Or stalactite has a C in it, and stalagmite has a G in it for ground. So C for ceiling for stalactite, and G for ground for stalagmite. If you have trouble spelling, that's not always the best way. But also on the ceiling, we have some old light fixtures.
Oh, wow.
So the hook and knob style, mostly those all throughout the cave, all the way to the back. A lot of people don't know this was a state park at one point. So owned by the state of Missouri and a fish hatchery. And it was the second fish hatchery in the state, only behind one that opened up in Forest Park in St. Louis. So they drew a lot of trout here from 1920 to 1959. People would still come for like picnics. Not as many walking trails, but everybody enjoyed the spring, the water. It stays around 55 degrees, so in the summer it's awesome to splash around here.
Yeah.
But the park board bought the property from the state in 1959 for $2,000, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
And it's been a city park since then, so. One of my favorite things to point out in this cave, I call it the cave glitter. So you'll see a little bit of sparkly stuff on the ceiling, yep. And in just a second, it just kind of like blows up. You'll see it everywhere. You'll see 2 different colors, gold and silver. And that's not always common to see in caves. This is a really wet, humid cave, so we have more moisture on the ceiling. And basically what it is, it's bacteria that grows behind water droplets. So our lights reflect off the water droplets and just kind of make it pop. When it's really dry, it just looks like a fungus behind the water droplets. But this is the time to be in the cave. The fall was not as pretty in the spring. This is one of the best I've seen as far as our cave glitter. There's a lot of gold over here to the left, kind of up above us right now.
Yeah, very cool.
Do we know how far back it goes?
Yeah, as far as it goes back further than we can. I guess I'll start with that. But as far as how far we've gone back, probably close to 2,500 feet. So a little bit over half of what we'll do today by boat. So the rest of it you have to crawl through mud. And eventually the cave ceiling gets so low that you can't go any further through the water. But we know most of the water is coming from Galloway Creek, and that's why when you walk over that bridge, the creek is normally dry for most of the year. So it's a losing stream, which means the water goes underground. We think close to Battlefield Road, and then comes out here to the cave. And it's been doing that for a really long time. That's why the water is pretty much always coming out. This is a little higher than last weekend though, which is nice for boat tours. Less scraping on the rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty long cave. This is definitely not anywhere close to the longest caves in Missouri or Arkansas, but that's pretty long.
Yeah.
We're going to a cave. There's a local caving club called the Springfield Plateau Grotto. And that's a
Okay.
good one to get involved with if you're interested in doing more caving. They have access to caves that are closed, but we're going to a cave that's like, I think it's over 15 miles.
Oh, wow.
Passageway
Okay.
here in Missouri in a couple weekends.
That's cool.
So are you a city employee with the Parks Board?
We are, yeah. So
Okay.
our department is called Outdoor Initiatives.
Okay.
So we're kind of like the outdoor recreation section for the Springfield Park Board. So we do kayaking programs over Lake Springfield in the summer. All the cave tours we do throughout the park board system. So Gibney Cave at Dolan Park, we do that cave tour in the summer. That's a good one too if you guys haven't done it. It's short and sweet, but it's really pretty. Lots of fun history in that park and cave too. That's just off of Kearney Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have to do that.
That's the one where they think Jesse James hung out in, right? Yep.
Yeah, so the story was he hung out, he didn't hide in the cave. Usually that's like the story we have in so many caves in Missouri, but there was a spring close and it's still there. You can see it today, Oral Spring.
Okay.
It's kind of just to the left of the parking lot, the lower left parking lot. But they knew about that and that was like a good spring as far as water quality goes. So
Okay.
they camped out by that. For that reason, the Gibney family was the first family came down and fed them that night. That was the story. So they camped out in the park for at least the night, maybe longer. It's hard to imagine that park, and this park too, being off the map, but back then, Springfield was a lot more centralized, obviously, and those two parks weren't really even in Springfield, so.
Yeah.
This is the biggest room in the cave, so you'll see the widest part if you look over to the right. It looks like some mud or rock collapsed back there a long time ago. The bats love this room though, so in the summer this is where most of the gray bats will be, and like I said, we have around 4,000 in this room, and they, unlike the little tricolor bat, they like to hang out in large numbers, so you'll sometimes see clusters of like 100 to 300 bats all hanging out together.
Wow.
Super cool.
This wire too hanging down, we've gotten a lot of questions about that. That just fell down last fall. So this wire dates back to the fish hatchery too. When they would have used the lights, it would have ran to the outside and then connected to a generator.
Do you guys have any estimated numbers of how many bats fly out just on average in the summer and fall?
Yeah, it's hard to say, like when you're just there experiencing it. I would say that you can see up to maybe like sometimes even 1,000 at a time.
Okay.
So when the flight starts, they're usually in the entrance. There'll be like a big circle of vortex in the entrance.
Okay.
Which is kind of fun. You can barely see that. And sometimes they'll just do that for the whole flight. So some flights are better than others, but usually eventually they'll start to filter out of the cave, and we think they fly as far as like Battlefield Mall. There's so many lights over there that attract insects. It's a really good spot for hunting. Southern Hills neighborhood, there's a lot of bats that fly around the lights in that neighborhood too. So pretty much anywhere in this area, if you're aware and you kind of know what a bat flying looks like, it kind of looks like a butterfly the way it flaps its wings, right? You'll see bats most nights.
So have you personally traveled like far distant? Like for instance, when I was a kid, I went to Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, and got to see the bat.
So I've been to Carlsbad, but we went in the winter and didn't get to see the bat
Okay,
fly.
yeah.
I've seen the bat fly in Austin at the big bridge that everyone talks about, and that's another colony of like 1 million bats.
Wow.
Which is crazy. I mean, it looks like a cloud there, and that's probably what you experienced too, because Carlsbad has like 1 million bats also, but it's just like a big black streak
Yep.
through the sky, so many bats. Yeah, those are still the best bat flights in the country down in Texas. Those are Mexican free-tailed bats, and they don't hibernate. They're active. They just kind of move around. There's more enough areas where they can fly to, so they can stay active all year round. But our bats here, the little ones, can hibernate up to 6 months, which is pretty crazy to think about.
That is.
And that's why white nose syndrome, I was talking about that a little bit outside, why it's such a big deal. It's a fungus that kind of like getting athlete's foot for us. They get it on their face, and it's really, really itchy and painful, so they wake up in hibernation, usually too many times, and they use up all their energy reserves. So a lot of bats don't make it through the winter once they get sick. But we used to see around 100, 150 of those little bats, and this year we counted 12 was the most we counted. So that's all due to white nose syndrome, unfortunately. It's only been around since 2006, and people always ask, what can we do to help stop the spread? And I usually say, if you go to caves a lot, just make sure you're disinfecting and cleaning all of your equipment. So we use Lysol and Woolite a detergent, and that's what I use in my washing machine. I just throw everything in my washing machine when I can, and I use woolite and it kills the fungus.
Nice.
So there's 3 different life zones in caves. The entrance zone gets a lot of light, the twilight zone gets a little bit of light, and we're in the dark zone now. So back here, there's no natural light and it's really dark. Pretty much the darkest place you can be on Earth.
Really?
So in a second we can turn off our lights and just experience it. It's pretty wild. You can't see your hand on your face.
Wow.
You can't really perceive like what's happening, but it's really peaceful in this cave because we're floating at the same time. So it's an interesting feeling that you can't really experience anywhere else.